5 to 5:45 server time. So I got a couple topics. Specifically, if you are interested in raiding and you haven't learned about what grievance raiding is, or you are completely unaware of what our teams are or our schedule or anything, I'm going to go ahead and post a quick link in TeamSpeak. There it is. You have to log in, I'm pretty sure, in order to see it. We have now, let's see, 2 dedicated raid teams, which basically means that for the dedicated teams, we have attendance requirements, and the schedule is a little bit less relaxed than our casual team. And the 2 dedicated raid teams have all slightly different schedules. 2 of the nights are different, and we have 1 combined night. So Wednesday, Friday, Saturday from 6 to 8 server is dedicated raid team Cinder's nights, and then let's see, dedicated raid team Storm is Thursday, Friday's the shared night, and then Sunday from 6 to 8 server also. But there's lots of information on the forum, so if you want to read up on that, and of course if you have any questions, feel free to ask me at any time about that. But moving right along to the purpose of the meeting is I wanted to get you guys together who are currently raiding and who are interested in raiding and curious what we're going to be doing for the new year, to provide you some clarification as to what we've been doing so far, our goals so far, and what we're looking for when we basically hit January and moving forward from there. When we started back raiding after 3.0 hit, we gave enough time for people to sort of level up, and then we started raiding, and we had a few people who needed a little bit longer of a transition period to get their characters leveled up and geared up. And so now we've almost got everybody, I believe, that signed up for a dedicated team to the point where they have 1,000 hit in their main spec gear. So grats to everybody who's been working hard on that. I know you guys have been busting your butts with all the neds and stuff. So we've been hitting Ren of Fate pretty hard, and we've sort of just, Ren of Fate is a 10-man, and then we've stepped into Mount Shirax, which is the tier 1 20-man, and we're working on Bolf, which is the first boss in Mount Shirax. The goals that I have for the remainder of this year and moving into January are that I'd really like us to get Bolf down, because this is a boss that I feel like we can effectively do as a 20-person team and use that as a stepping stone for us to get gear. Additionally, we've been kind of splitting our time doing dedicated, or sorry, not dedicated, but daily raid rifts. We have not yet successfully finished one all the way through its final stage, but we got pretty far in the last one we tried as a combined team. So the goals for this here, for the DRRs, is I'd really like us to finish learning the mechanics of both the Sea of Layden and Planecrawler project, so that we can start doing them on non-raid nights as a guild. So this would be ideally open to anybody who wanted to join it on a non-raid night. And for those, you would need 1,000 hit, and again, we're trying to finish learning the mechanics so that we can transfer that knowledge to anybody else who wants to join. And the benefits of doing that would be like planar essences and such to go in your focus or your sigil or whatnot. It got some really good loot, and they don't take terribly long, and once we become more proficient at them, this would definitely help everybody who's interested in gearing up. When January comes along, specifically, we've been really relaxed on our attendance requirements for the dedicated teams. It's a 70% attendance requirement and 30 days of raiding. And we've done this on purpose to allow everybody a really smooth transition period to getting back into raiding, and especially with the holiday seasons that have come and gone and are about to hit again, we wanted to make sure to give everybody enough time to do that so you didn't feel stressed. When January comes, we are going to be enforcing the 70% requirement on attendance in 30 days. Now, having said that, again, I feel like I must reiterate that this is a rule that's in place as a strong guideline. We will be working with anybody who lets us know. That would be, when I say we, I mean all of the raid team leaders, Twixt, Tannen, Swank and myself will be working with you if you have special circumstances that you make us aware of, if things change in your life, whatever's going on, please just communicate with us so that we know how to best help you. There is the leave of absence clause that's available for dedicated raiders. If you need to use that, please, by all means, just use it. I don't care what you use it for. If you need to take time away from this game, do that. Do whatever's best for you. But please keep in communication with us. Otherwise, we're going to hold you to the same standards as we do everybody else, which is the 70% rule. And we'll be contacting you if you don't meet the attendance requirements and discussing your future with the dedicated raid team. Also in the mix for January, if you are on a dedicated raid team, I really need you to have two specs that you are absolutely proficient at. Meaning, if you are a tank, I need you to then have a DPS spec available. If your main spec heals, I need you to have a DPS spec available. Same goes with main spec support. Now, if you are main spec DPS, it is imperative that you have a secondary spec available that you can run and that will benefit the raid team. So if you are more inclined to learn heals as a secondary spec or tanking as a secondary spec, that's wonderful. Please do that and make sure that you know them for the raids. It's especially important in our 10-man raids because we have limited spots available and sometimes we have to shift people around and then we don't have the correct composition that we need. Aside from that, when we start getting enough people where we can actually split us up into two 10-man groups, that is really going to put a strain on our composition and who we have available to play what specs. So I definitely need everybody to be learning two specs that you can play. Now, if you're thinking, well, hey, I play a class and I don't want to pay for the souls that would allow me the opportunity to have a support spec. An example would be if you're a cleric and you're saying, well, I don't have the money or I don't have the desire to purchase the spec to play Defiler or to play Oracle. That's fine. It's not a big deal, but then I would ask you to at least investigate a heal spec or a tank spec or whatever specs are free for you to play, because here in Grievance with rating, I am not at all interested in you purchasing money to play this game. I want you to play at whatever level you're comfortable with whatever you have available to you. So as a reminder, the gear-wise, the earrings, not a requirement for rating at all. If you want to purchase them, props to you. If you don't, that's fine, and we will you'll never suffer any negative consequences for not having pay-for items in rating. Also with secondary specs, mage and rogue specs, both support that you could play in either of those classes are free. Those roles are free. So if you're mage, the Archon class is free. If you're rogue, the Bard class is free. Please investigate those. Also, when January comes, I want you guys to be looking into melee. We don't do a lot of melee rating because previously we were just learning mechanics, and a lot of that made it quite a bit easier for us to have range specs. But in 3.0, I'm seeing that several of the fights actually have better opportunities to invoke melee specs, which will produce higher DPS, and that's definitely what we need while we're still gearing up. So if you have an extra slot available, please do be looking into melee specs. An example would be Ungolok right now. If you know the mechanics, really not that difficult, I would imagine, to melee. That would be the first boss in Ren of Fate. Also, the second boss in Mount Shirax, that is a pretty standstill fight. You move as a group, but you're relatively close to the boss. Really great opportunity to melee DPS as well. As far as what I'd like us to focus on with boss killing, the first one will be, of course, both in Mount Shirax. I think that we can easily get this one down. That's the one that I'm expecting us to be farming for gear. Secondarily, I'm expecting us to have great success with Ungolok in Ren of Fate, that first boss there, that 10-man. And then the second boss in Ren of Fate, I think, will be our next, probably our next success as far as boss kills go, just based on the difficulty and the DPS requirements. Lastly, if you're on a dedicated raid team, you guys have had a relatively good period of time to get used to your raid team leaders. If you find at any point that you don't feel like you fit well with the group that you're in, or you don't enjoy the leadership style, this goes for both teams, feel free to talk to us about it. We're not against swapping you to another team if you'd like, if you think that you'll have a better sense of cohesion with a different group. Alternatively, if you have life circumstances that change and your schedule changes or whatnot, and you feel the need to be on a different team with a different schedule, let us know also. We can definitely work with you to make that happen. Really quick regarding who I am as raid leader. A lot of you have had an opportunity to raid with me, and I've known you guys for quite a while in Grievance, so in and out of raiding, you know a bit about who I am. But additionally, I feel the need to let you know that as a raid leader, I feel like my strengths excel in getting to know you guys and trying to keep us together as a community. I know a lot of raid leaders are probably extremely knowledgeable about specs and gear and game mechanics and all the ins and outs of this game. And I admit that that is not an area that I am extremely proficient in. But I do feel like that's okay, because I know that I have tons of people around me and in our teams that are extremely knowledgeable of that content, and I can always refer you to them. So as a person and as raid leader, it's most important to me that you guys are having fun. If at any point I don't know the content, or I don't know how to answer your question, or I simply just don't understand what you're asking, I am not, I wouldn't hesitate to refer you to someone that can answer your questions better. So speaking of that, we actually have a large group of people who have volunteered to be class contributors, and that means that they are consistently willing to help out anybody who's in the guild, raiders and non-raiders alike. So if you ever have any questions that I am unable to answer, or you're interested in viewing other specs or seeing what everybody's up to as far as class stuff goes, we have those class discussion forums. And if anybody's interested in volunteering to be a class contributor, please let me know. I would love to add you to the list. There's a link in TeamSpeak for the class discussion forums. And as you guys are investigating your secondary specs for dedicated rating, take a look in there. There's a lot of great guides that people have posted, or links to guides that others have written. Great information there. So you guys, we've been talking about dedicated raid teams for a little bit. What's up with the casual team, right? Because I know you're curious. So what's been going on with the casual team is that it's a bit in standstill right now. I've had several people sign up actually, and I have an ongoing roster on the forums of who has signed up for dedicated teams and who's signed up for casual teams, just so everybody's aware of who's on what team and how many spots we have left and such, and what the level of interest is. If you're curious as to why we haven't done anything with the casual team yet, it is because this content that we're still struggling with in the dedicated teams is really quite hard, and we've learned a lot, but we haven't reached the point yet where we can effectively transition that into creating a very successful casual team. An additional factor is that the officers who have agreed to lead the casual team are responsible and are working on leveling up their alts as well. That is a task in itself, because that means that we have to get our alts raid ready, not just Ned ready, but raid ready, and to be efficient contributors to the casual team. Casual teams are open to allow alts in as well, but no gear would go to alts before it went to a casual raid member who is their main character. So no worries there.
User joined your channel.
And the reason that we would have to level up alts, in case you guys are curious why we wouldn't bring our mains in, it's because of the lockout issue. If we're raiding on dedicated raid teams, our lockouts are saved for our mains. So in order to lead a casual raid and assist with that, we would need to do so with alts. So I think that has pretty much covered. I gave you guys a little bit of an information overload, but that has covered all the topics that I wanted to discuss to let you know what we've been doing, where we're headed. If you're interested in signing up for a dedicated raid team, we still have spots. We still have tons of spots on the casual team as well. That's basically an infinite number of people that could join the casual team. I guess I'd like to open it up for questions or commentary. Anything you guys have, how you guys think we've been doing, our progress, if you have questions, anything at all.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you see my name in there yet, but this is Laura Raven. See, I prefer tank or bard personally. I have ranger, but I'm more fond of the bard and tank personally. How do you handle that stuff exactly?
It's all about being flexible. The thing is, we all have a lot of stuff that we really like playing. I would really prefer just to do nothing but tank all the time, but it's not always the most convenient thing for everybody else. So we try and do our best to let you swap around so that if you really like playing Bard, that seems like one that you could probably do most of the time that most of the rogues would let you go at. But when there's 4 tanks that are all trying to get in time tanking, we just have to kind of swap out and be equitable about it. So,
I have no problem playing a bard. I love it. For me, it's fun.
But still, when it comes down to it, maybe there's another person who really likes playing Bard, and at that point, if we have people that are main spec tanks and we have some Bards covered, we would need people to be able to cover DPS spots and be able to be proficient at that. So that's just what we're asking for. It's not too much to have 3 role slots. I know we have I have way more than that, but it's just being able to do a variety of different roles and be proficient,
that's what I was
just to help
wondering.
out the whole group. Thank you for your question.
Bink, you had mentioned that you wanted people to start looking into melee specs. Was it because of the increased DPS, or?
It's a little bit about that, but more about the versatility of our raiders. We've been kind of restricted, I feel, to range specs, and it's become the norm. But I think that we could really push ourselves and expand a bit if people are interested in learning the melee specs. It will provide a little bit of a DPS increase, I believe, and I just like to open that up for people to investigate them and know that that's okay, and I'm interested in it, and I'd love to start implementing some melee raiders in to do some DPS once we understand these mechanics better, because I think it would be another interesting perspective to explore.
Thank you very much for your clarification. And to add to your point, I know Twix was doing like 28k or something in his Harbcon spec, which is a melee spec, and that DPS for a support role is phenomenal.
Yep, if it's viable, there's definitely no problems with people doing those melee specs. It's just sometimes I know we had experiences where the fight just was not conducive to melee, but we're kind of seeing some more that are more so conducive to it, and it could be beneficial.
Yeah, I think as long as it's one of several specs you've got, because sometimes you gotta be able to do ranged, but in fights where they're conducive to it, it makes a lot of sense. And some but callings are have quite a bit of melee opportunities. Based on raids that I've done in Rift in the past, I pretty much gave up on melee as viable a long time ago, but if that's changing, that's kind of cool.
I guess it is, Swank mentioned this to me, and it is worth mentioning to you guys too. If you are investigating melee specs, please do remember that we are considering these specs to be raid ready and very contributory to the overall raid DPS. So we're not talking about specs that you would be very comfortable soloing in or leveling in. So nothing like druid, I guess, where you're using a pet of that sort. But these really
I could so own and druid in there and support heal.
But you know what? I guess I don't care. If you can pull the numbers and you're really contributing to the group, go for it.
I'm gonna pull my 12k.
She laughed at me.
And I'll even run my greatest satyr protector to pick up the shark.
I'm sure that'll be amazing.
Just saying. We need a bigger boat.
So how are you guys feeling about the dedicated raid team progress? How are you feeling about the cohesion of our groups, about how we're doing with our mixed groups on Fridays and such? Any feedback at all? Please offer it.
That emissary guy.
User entered your channel.
Banyan's main.
He
I
wears
do-
wheel blinders and raid.
Jeez. I do kind of like that we do things as a combined team, because I understand, one for scheduling and coordination and what have you. It makes sense to have two teams, but doing stuff together helps remind us that we're kind of all in this together.
Oh, I hear a song coming on.
I feel very similarly, and I too like combining teams. And this is something that as we get more people on each team, we're going to continue to try and merge together when it's going to work. It is a little bit tricky, or will get tricky, working out the lockouts as we progress further into, I guess, as we start downing more bosses and considering saving lockouts and getting them appropriately worked out. But as much as we can,
User
I'd really
joined your
like to
channel.
keep us together, because I don't want to see separation of the teams. I want everybody to remember that we came from one team, just one. Everybody was on the same raid team, and we all raided together. And just because we have these separate teams now, it's mainly for scheduling purposes. And people have different availability, so it's providing a larger opportunity for more people to raid with us, but that should not alter how we feel as a group. You guys are always so quiet, and that's fine, but it's totally open. If you guys want to ask questions, anything, comment.
I had one question. You were mentioning that the guild would try to be conducive to people's schedules with real life and such. With that, this upcoming spring is going to be completely new for me. I've never, because I'm going to university at the moment and things, and my schedule's different than what it usually is. If I needed to switch to casual or something like that, or switch to a different team or whatever, you mentioned talking to the raid leaders. Would I have to talk to all of them or just one?
No, just the one, either the team leaders that are on your specific dedicated team that you're on currently. They'll pass that information along to me, but I was just mentioning us all because I don't know if everybody was familiar with who they are.
Roger that. Thank you very much, Bink.
Yep.
And actually, this may be answered on the website, but if, like you mentioned, changing teams, perhaps you need a different schedule or a different style, or you want to go from casual to dedicated or vice versa. How does DKP work in that scenario?
Nothing gets modified for DKP. I've set it up on the website where it all pulls from the same DKP pool. So that's why when you look on the DKP site, it actually lists the same numbers under each team. But there's no DKP hit for needing to change teams, needing to swap from one dedicated team to another, wanting to swap from dedicated to casual, or move from casual to dedicated. It does not matter.
Okay.
What's
guess-
the potential?
No, go ahead.
What's the potential for a third dedicated?
Well, it's always open, I guess. But right now we're still filling out our current 2. So if that is super successful, I guess that's pretty far off in the future when we would consider adding a third team. Because there's a whole bunch of issues on the leadership side of it, who we could get to lead it, what schedule, coordinating schedules, and of course, if we're wanting to intertwine the groups on a specific raid night, to have a combined night, then it just adds a little bit of an extra headache. So I'd have to say it's possible, but not in the immediate future.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, and I forgot, I wanted to mention some things to you guys. At our last Raider meeting, some people had asked some questions, and I actually didn't get back with the answers on those yet. They were really short. I'm trying to look them up. Okay, so there was a question asked about whether we would be doing a temporary adjustment to minimum bids on raids. So like when the bosses drop items, would we be doing any reduced minimum bids? Currently our minimum bids, I think, are 10 for a purple item and 20 DKP for an orange one. The answer to that is no. We have actually had a sufficient amount of nights already, and people are racking up the DKP quite quickly. So I I'm nearly positive that most everybody that's been raiding is either surpassed the minimum bid requirement or is very close to it. So we won't be doing any temporary adjustments to minimum bids. It will be what is stated in the raid rules. I also had another question about whether a person could bid on gear using DKP for wardrobe purposes. The answer to that would be no. We had a discussion about that, and I gave a tentative answer at the time, but I wanted to let you guys know for sure. I would prefer that we do not use DKP to bid on wardrobe items because, well, I mean, for a while your DKP is going to be better used to bid on actual gear that you need. But alternatively, if we shard a piece of gear, the materials go to the guild bank, and then those are reused for any raiders that need materials for runes and such, and that benefits the raid team as a whole much more than a piece of wardrobe would. Back to your questions.
Raid rifts. Planar focuses. Have you been focusing on that at all?
The daily raid rifts?
Oh, raid rifts for essences for your focuses. Back when I was doing a lot of progressive stuff, I was with Brotherhood of the Spider, and that was the first thing we actually focused on was making certain that the main raiders ended up with focuses that were up to date, and then you'd start your progression into the dungeon, because that was the biggest thing about increasing your DPS. And if you're having DPS issues, that might be part of the problem.
Definitely it is part of the problem. I know, myself included, I actually don't have any new essences yet, unfortunately, and I know a lot of other raiders that don't also. The drop rate is pretty low on those. We did do at the beginning of our raiding some nightmare rifts. We are doing the daily raid rift since it's an ensured drop of essences and the like. Once we get those down and we become proficient at them, we'll be doing those a lot. A thing worth mentioning for those is that the lures are expensive, and I know I've mentioned this to you guys before. So if anybody would like to donate lures to either raid night DRRs or off night DRRs that would just be held as the guild, please consider doing those. It's greatly appreciated.
Second question. Because instant nightmare rifts can have up to 20 people, have we thought about doing those as far as a dedicated team?
I had thought about it, but honestly, I feel like our time is better spent getting these bosses down, because we are very close on some of them, and Bolf is seriously like, I think that we are extremely close on Bolf, and if we can continue to farm them, I think that our dedicated raid times is only 3 nights a week is better spent doing that and DRRs.
I wasn't meaning as like to get away from our current raids. I meant like once we have everything on farm or in off nights or things like that. I don't know. Just as something that we could do as a organized thing.
Definitely.
Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
As far as I know.
I think we should be doing those pretty regularly as a guild. We've tried a little bit to get that going, and I don't know if we were doing it on nights where people were busy or what exactly, but those instances, one, they're fun, they're easy, well, easy in the sense of, well, easier than raiding, and useful as far as progress for people. And you do get decent essences out of those things. Not up to the quality of the raid rifts, but certainly you can get some good stuff. And I think if we coordinate that a little bit and work people up, is you need, mastery of each level to buy the next level. But running those instances to get people to mastery so we can have more and more people who can buy them, I think would be a really good idea.
To me, that sounds like a community-fueled type event. Just like the great hunts and things were like for Torvin. You would get on and somebody would be feeling the itch to try and grind out Torvin, and then we would get a group going and we'd kind of all trade out buying lures and things like that. The biggest difference is the lures are much more expensive, whether we do it in open world or in an instance. But I feel like that one's going to be kind of a community-driven thing where we all just kind of pull together on off nights to try and push those, because it is going to benefit us to be able to buy those new lures.
Yeah, that's, maybe I wasn't clear. That's what I'm talking about, not as raid group events, because they shouldn't be exclusive to the raiders anyway. But just, I mean, I think as a guild, we should be, we should have one of those a night as an event. It doesn't take super long. Brings people in. It's kind of fun. When you have voice chat, it goes pretty smooth. Everybody learns them, is more effective in the open world ones anyway.
Well, definitely, if you guys have people that are willing to purchase the lures and get those going, I mean, I would highly encourage everybody to do that. I'm excited to see that more people are getting their hit and leveling up and getting better gear. So I'm looking forward to reinstituting some more guild-focused events, not just raider-focused events again.
They did increase the Planarite drop quite a bit.
It's dramatically increased. I can't spend it fast enough.
Exactly, and I'm not certain. I was looking at the DDO store, or not DDO, but a Rift store. I'm sorry, I was playing DDO before I came back here. But the prices seem to, I don't know if they're dropped, but they don't seem to be nearly as expensive as they used to be. Let's see here, because if you're starting off low, you don't have, if you're just going for the notoriety and all that, so you can turn around and buy the essences, you're looking at the first tier is only 20 void stones.
Well, yeah, the gate on that is really the Planarite.
If we
100,000 range. But anyway, we don't need to go into detail on that now. I'm just saying, as far as the nightmare instances, no, it shouldn't be a raid, a raid time thing, but we should definitely be doing them as a guild.
User disconnected from your channel.
Just to benefit everybody and have some fun together.
Yep, I agree. And if we have people that are just now running Neds and getting their Ned gear, their hit to run Neds, we have tons and tons and tons of people in the guild now who are relatively well geared, if not awesomely geared, who would be more than happy to run you through, help you learn the mechanics, help you learn a new class, and there are some learning that you can do on your own as well. We have lots of resources on the forums. I know there's a recent post about how to gear up for Neds, how to be ready for Neds and such. So please make sure that you're using all the resources that we have available. If you don't look at the forums very frequently, that's okay, but we have so much information there and people are posting constantly trying to keep everybody updated that I would highly encourage you to be more active on the forums. Even if you're just lurking and reading, that's okay too. But in the class contributor section, definitely, and we have people posting community. Everybody's willing to help you out. So do try and read up on the forums and talk to your guildmates if you're ever in need of anything. Back to your questions again.
Well, doesn't sound like there's any questions. It looks like our raid accept times in 10 minutes. Any other thoughts before we get a little break before that?
Go Grievance!
Take
Hands
that as
Yay.
a no.
Thank you, Bink.
Yep. If at any point you guys do have questions or thoughts or you forgot
User
what you were
left
going to
your
talk
channel.
about
User
or whatever,
disconnected from your channel.
please just run it by